There were a lot of uncomfortable feelings with that, and I was someone that probably tended to try and either shut them out or run away from uncomfortable feelings. And
Sure.
From this distant vantage point, the Earth might not seem of any particular interest. But for us, observe, cherish the only home we've ever known. The pale blue dot.
G'day all friends of the MindMate podcast. Super pumped to have you on here for the show for another listening sesh. One of the things I've been coming to realise with the MindMate is just how amazing it's been to actually really get that whole real talk out there, that authentic discussion. And I really want to hear more of your guys' feedback about the show and about what we're trying to build with the MindMate. We're trying to help and educate blokes with the actual business side of the MindMate through high intensity exercise and emotional intelligence and counselling therapies and all these beautiful things. But just because that's centered towards dudes, it doesn't mean that you lovely ladies can't get in on the action as well with the MindMate. So I guess the biggest thing that I'm trying to take away from this is feedback. If I'd really appreciate your feedback, because you guys listening to the show now, you really are the on this journey with me for the start of it into hopefully what will be a bright and shiny future. So look, I'd love your feedback if you wanted to hit us up through Facebook at the MindMate, or just leave a rating and review. I really do want to take that on board to make this the best audio experience as I possibly can for you, and then obviously visual with our YouTube links. But guys, that's all from me today. Please enjoy the show.
pretty good. Just a lot of life admin going on at the moment.
Yes. Very good.
Writing up an online course as well. So
Yeah.
hopefully get that out in the next couple of weeks, which has been good.
Mate, that's been great, yeah. Do you listen to...
And you were about to launch yours?
I'm not. Hopefully, I'll be... I reckon I'm about 4 or 5 months away-ish from doing the first online course. That'll be... it'll be related to emotional intelligence. So, a course through emotional intelligence there. But it's... I've just launched MindFit, which is really exciting. So we're still in the testing phase of that, but all the systems are up and ready to go. So I want to try to build that to get some good sort of clients coming through there, which should be really fun. And then I'll start to move to the educational courses, I think, because I've got in my Trello account, I've got all these things that I really want to start pumping out, like educational courses related to emotional intelligence, like learning to play guitar, to woo parties and chicks, mindfulness, functional training. So the courses are great, man. You can just have so much fun with them.
Oh yeah, it's wicked, It's wicked. It's just dipping the toes at the moment, but just kind of seeing how it goes, and it's like it really helps you kind of formulate your ideas as well and get clear on your thinking around the topic if you're trying to teach it to other people.
Yeah, 100%. It's the best way to learn is to teach.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, Chriso, mate, nice to officially welcome you. We'll probably leave all that in for a bit of fun. Sweet. Look, mate, nice to officially welcome you onto the MindMate podcast.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. It's always a little bit more uncomfortable for me sitting on this side of the microphone and getting questions asked of me.
But, mate, uncomfortable is okay.
It is. Yeah. I had to sort of say that to myself a few times before the call.
Yeah.
You caught me going for a nervous wee before.
Yeah.
So it's all on here.
How'd you go, mate? Did you post that to social media?
Facebook Live.
Okay, good.
Facebook
Excellent.
Live, so check that out.
Yeah, no, I'll have a look at it. Make sure to share it. Make sure you just chuck a filter on it to make sure you look hydrated. So.
Yeah. Not the kind of yellow gloss over the top,
Yeah, you want to be using Lark, I believe it's called.
Okay. Yeah. I'll bear that in mind for future urine-related posts.
So, Chriso, mate, first thing I wanted to ask you is, where did the name come about from? Like, I'm assuming you had some sort of personal experience, or what got you interested in the feeling of being uncomfortable?
Oh, Do you want the short version or the slightly longer?
I want the slightly longer version, mate. No filters.
Okay, no filters, sweet mate. So I'm a 34-year-old Kiwi guy, and growing up in New Zealand, like most young Kiwi males, I was pretty much into every sport that was going on. Back in the 80s and the 90s. Probably my main ones were cricket and rugby, but I tried my hand. Some of my mates needed another member of their squash team one year, so I played that, did a bit of triathlon, did some athletics, did some swimming, just kind of dabbled. So I was pretty good at getting out of my comfort zone from a physical perspective.
Sure.
Probably like most young Kiwi males, and I'm assuming a lot of young Aussie males as well, that I wasn't so flash at getting uncomfortable sort of around relationships or around sort of emotional issues. You kind of you grow up in these countries, and it's like, you're a boy, you'll be right. Just kind of push them through, just brush it off.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. So, I mean, but yeah, growing up, a lot of things are uncomfortable because a lot of things are new for you.
Of course.
Everything is a new challenge that you're taking on, and that you're sort of trying to overcome or work around or work through. So yeah, that kind of went on for until I finished up uni, actually. So my day job, I work as a physiotherapist. So I went down to Otago and studied physiotherapy down there, and yeah, just kind of kept consistently challenging myself. But then once I graduated from university, for some reason I had it in my head, and I don't know why this is actually, and I don't know actually if it is important or if it's not, if it's just something it is what it is, and I just need to kind of work through. But I got the impression, or I thought society told us that once you'd finished uni, once you'd got a job, then actually that was it. You just kind of, that was your life. That was what happened. So I just sort of stepped back and stayed comfortable, and basically I worked, I partied, hung out with mates.
Devils.
Played a little bit of sport, did a little bit more partying. And in and of itself, there's nothing particularly wrong with that. But that was kind of something that I got caught up with for a good few years, actually. I was kind of just drifting along in life, not really sort of feeling that engaged with anything, and kind of just operating from a really fixed place that this is what it is. This is what life is like. But having this kind of really uncomfortable feeling around that, just thinking, well, shit, if this is what life is going to be like, then that is going to fucking suck for the next sort of 60 or 70 years, isn't it? And it took me a while. It was a little bit of a slow burn, actually, to come out of that and figure out for myself that, well, I'm not doing anything sort of outside of my comfort zone. I'm not challenging myself in any way. Maybe that's what I need to do to actually start getting a little bit more excited about life and getting engaged with it a wee bit more. So I started to set little things for myself in terms of some challenges, just to push me a little bit more and kind of take me out and do some things. And I found actually that, hey, this is pretty exciting. I'm starting to enjoy things again as I start to challenge myself and start to push myself. But one thing that I did find as well was it's so much harder to get back into it and start stepping outside of your comfort zone again, because it would have been sort of 5 or 6 years by this stage that I'd finished university and kind of just been drifting along. And it got to that point and was thinking, well, actually, this is exciting for me. I'm starting to sort of build a little bit of momentum in terms of kind of taking on some challenges, but it's still pretty tough work. And if I'm having this problem, then there's probably a whole lot of other people out there that are struggling with kind of overcoming discomfort, whether that's they just kind of checked out for a bit, like I had, and were trying to get back into engaging in life.
Yep.
Or whether they'd never really learnt that in the first place.
Yeah.
And had just floated through life. So that was kind of the impetus for starting to think about being uncomfortable and embracing discomfort and getting out of your comfort zone. And it's led me down a pretty interesting path, actually, kind of having a look at some of the science around that, which there's not huge amounts, actually. So that might be something that might be fun.
It's been very interesting. I know nothing about it scientifically, but
yeah. No, it'd be interesting to kind of maybe get into a little bit of that later in my life and sort of start to understand the science around it a little bit more. But also kind of talking to over 100 people now about their experiences with getting out of their comfort zones and getting uncomfortable. But actually, you asked about the name. So that's the long version.
Sure.
The short version about the name is I was in the gym rehabbing someone one day, and we got to the point in their rehab program where like they were doing pretty well.
Yep.
But we just needed to push it a little bit to get to the next level, which is a nice metaphor for life as well. And I was like, I'm going to give you this exercise to do, and I want you to feel it. I want it to hurt a little bit. Because that's now how we know that we're working the right way. That's how we know that, hey, we're stressing the right things in order for them to adapt and improve.
Yep.
I don't want it to be so painful that you start to cry, but I want it to be uncomfortable.
Yep.
Uncomfortable is okay with this one.
Cool.
Then I was like, I'd been playing with this idea for a while, and then I was like, oh, boom.
There it is.
That's the name.
Yeah, I love it. It's great. And do you get 50% of the proceeds to that client, or?
I can't actually remember who it was.
Oh, that's what they all say, mate.
Yeah, I've caught myself saying it so many more times actually in the gym when I'm working with people, and the problem is that all the guys that I work with as well know I have this podcast called this. So every time I say it, they'll kind of give me a look at it, and they're like, "Are you just trying to market your podcast to
exactly right."
Clients?
So I guess let's look to the podcast now. What are some of the things that you've learnt? I guess what's the general consensus been in terms of people's experience with being uncomfortable? Because I know when you had me on the show, mine initially sprung about from not genuinely making a conscious decision to become uncomfortable, but it was something to kind of figure out a way how to not feel so confusingly uncomfortable all the time. So. What are some of your takeaways from some of the people that you've been able to interview?
Yeah, interesting. I think as a general consensus, I talk to a lot of people from a whole lot of different backgrounds. So people like yourself, Tommy, also athletes. Not to say you're not an athlete.
True. Fatties like yourself, Tommy.
Yeah. Mate, you've got a body, you're an athlete.
Yeah, let's give it to me.
Yeah. Adventurers, business owners, authors, actresses, just randoms as well. And everyone has something that they're uncomfortable about. Everyone has a comfort zone, but everyone's comfort zone is different.
Yep.
Based on, actually, for example, I was talking to a burlesque dancer
one
day, which was a really fascinating conversation. But obviously she gets up and dances on stage in front of a whole lot of people wearing not a whole lot of clothes, which she is absolutely sweet with. But she's absolutely terrified of driving.
Really?
That makes it super uncomfortable.
Wow.
And for probably 99% of the population, it would be the other way around.
Yeah.
Imagine. So, I mean, that everyone has a different comfort zone, no matter your background, no matter what you've done in the past, but your experiences and your thoughts and your beliefs have led you to that point of thinking, okay, no, I'm sweet with this, but that thing over there, no, that gives me some kind of worry, some kind of discomfort. There's something that I'm not I'm not certain about with that. So that's one of the big things that I've taken away.
Okay.
That everyone gets uncomfortable with something.
Yeah, for sure.
But
and yeah, sorry.
You can, like with physical training, you can train your comfort zone and you can train your experiences as well. You don't always want to go and just jump into the scariest thing that you can imagine, because often you'll overwhelm yourself with that. I think we talked when you had a chat in my podcast about this concept called optimal anxiety, where actually it's a lovely little parabolic curve that with as you get stressed, your performance increases, and it increases reasonably rapidly with that stress increase, and you get to a point actually where you're reasonably stressed, but actually your performance, you're just kind of crushing it. This is sort of like when you're lifting cars off children and that kind of thing.
The adrenaline and the inflammation.
Yeah, and just kind of hones your focus and gets you in the zone.
Yeah.
But actually going over that stress point, you start to experience a sense of overwhelm, and you start to get actually a loss of performance.
Yes.
Because you're overwhelmed, and then that goes all the way down to kind of being so stressed that you just end up in a quivering heap on the floor.
Yeah.
Probably have hit yourself. So most of the people that I've talked to, actually, the best way that they've managed to expand their comfort zone is doing it progressively and kind of doing it in a reasonably small stepwise fashion.
Yeah.
It depends on the kind of area of discomfort, but it also depends on kind of the experiences of that person as well. So one guy that I talked to, he's a dude that has climbed Mount Everest. So his next challenge was to row a boat from Singapore to Northern Australia, ride his bike from Northern Australia to New South Wales, and then row his boat from Australia to New Zealand.
Jeez.
So that was kind of the next step for him for getting uncomfortable. But there's also kind of people like musicians that I've talked to that actually playing a song at home in front of no one to then going and playing in front of their family, and then going and playing in a small crowd, and then going and playing a big concert. That tends to be more kind of the progression that people take to expand their comfort zone. So another big thing was that a comfort zone is trainable if you put in some time and you put in some focus with it, and you take small enough steps so as not to overwhelm yourself. So, I mean, like, I know for, with psychologists and anxiety experts, they always talk about the realm of exposure therapy, and how, a little bit of exposure, like what you're talking about, those progressive steps can actually be really good for us to actually take that accountability on and that responsibility and train ourselves to actually expand that comfort zone. I think anxiety can be a little bit of a different thing sometimes, because you're almost working back and going, hey, let's actually bring this fear back down from this particular experience or landscape, because I've worked myself up to such an aggressive state that now I have to backtrack and teach myself that it's actually okay. I'm not going to be in danger. But as a slight tangent, mate, I'd love to know some of your areas that are slightly uncomfortable for you. Did you ever feel a little bit awkward starting a podcast, or where have you kind of stepped over the line? Definitely, mate. Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of areas that are uncomfortable for me still. Starting a podcast was a really uncomfortable step for me. I mean, 2 weeks ago, I just cracked over 100 episodes. So it's not quite as uncomfortable anymore. That's good. But I mean, there was a lot of sort of internal voice that was going on for me at the time. I knew it was something that I wanted to do and that I wanted to test out, and just to kind of figure out, hey, actually, will people just more than my mum listen to me.
Yeah. Not that we don't love your mum, we love your mum.
And thanks for listening to all 100 episodes, Mum.
Yeah.
It's been awesome.
Yeah. She's been uncomfortable the whole time.
Yeah. So I now have 102 downloads.
Yeah, exactly.
No, so like, there was a lot of sort of internal self-talk that was going on initially, saying, no, actually people aren't going to listen to you at all. People won't want to talk to you on your podcast.
Yeah.
Like, why would they want to come and talk to you?
For sure.
And also, I mean, it was kind of a safer start in terms of kind of being able to ask people questions.
Yeah.
So I didn't feel like I had such a reliance on me actually having to kind of experience a whole lot of insight and kind of deliver all that knowledge. But again, that was a worry for me. It was, are people going to want to listen to what I have to say as well, not just the questions that I ask. But I've got to a point now. We're actually on a Friday, I throw out a little 5-minute episode with just kind of a little nugget around either a strategy or a little bit of science or a story around how to get uncomfortable and how to sort of help train yourself to be okay with being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And again, I went through exactly the same things when I did that, as well as like, oh shit, are people gonna appreciate what you have to say? Do I have anything to say?
Yeah.
And I think like through progressively getting uncomfortable throwing things out with the podcast up until that point, it kind of allowed me to take that next step with it. Another thing that I found quite challenging was, because it was something that was reasonably personal, that if I put something out there and I got a little bit of negative feedback on it, that actually initially I kind of felt that as a little bit of an attack on myself.
Of course.
Even though it kind of has not a whole lot to do with who I am intrinsically as a person. You're like, shit, I'm wrapped up in this. Someone's knocked it a little bit. That makes me feel bad about myself and makes me question who I am and if I'm a good person.
But the beautiful irony in what you're doing and what you just said is that by someone attacking you, putting yourself out of your comfort zone is something that's so powerful to train. So it's actually a positive.
Yeah, and I look back on it now and I think, oh, actually that is a cool thing. And I mean, none of the remarks that I ever got were overly scathing.
Yeah.
I don't think enough people listen to me to actually kind of have any haters.
Mate,
just the scathing remarks from my mum occasionally.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. No, I experienced the same things when we started Adventure Fit Radio. It was a thing of like, oh shit, we went into it pretty deep straight up from the get go. We were talking about some pretty sexually explicit things, swearing all the time, and but I mean, irrespective of how far we went into it this way and that, I think the thing that you touched on, which is a fantastic point, is the fact that when you start a podcast, you can't act. If you're on a radio show or if you're doing all these sorts of things, it's just you 100% all the time. There's only so much acting you can do before the real you comes out on a podcast. And this is, I guess, what Brené Brown talks about in The Power of Vulnerability. But when it's just you and someone attacks you, you've got nothing to hide. And you can't necessarily, I mean, you can work on it, you can make yourself better, but they know you for you and your authentic self. And that's a very vulnerable position to put you in. But alternatively, it's also something that's very, very empowering, because when you're your honest self and you have that degree of authenticity spreading out to the world, people know you for you, and you can build on that to such an extreme that you can really make yourself the best person you can be.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there, mate. I think it's quite hard sometimes to get to that place of being okay with the discomfort of being vulnerable.
For sure.
I mean, a lot of us put on masks to the world and try and kind of portray ourselves like almost through a social media filter that actually this is what I think other people want to think about me. So this is who I'm going to try and portray to the world, and that doesn't always feel like it kind of it hits home with yourself internally. But I think actually people are going to engage with you a lot more, and actually going to kind of listen to what you say and have a deeper conversation if you can start to drop the mask and actually kind of speak a little bit more from. Talking about speaking from the heart sounds real cliche, but kind of speaking from your values and speaking from kind of what's important to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And more often than not, it has so many far-reaching effects. Not only from an authentic perspective. Number one, the reason why I wanted you on the show was obviously because we went back and forth and became pretty cool mates, despite never actually shaking hands, which is the power of the modern world. But number two, mate, you got that authenticity aspect, and the three pillars of the My Mate podcast are mental health, spirituality, and authenticity. And it's important. And I think it's all lovey-dovey and woo-woo and all that sort of stuff to say, hey, be your true self and be your authentic self. But fundamentally, if you want to achieve something in life, if you want to build a business, if you want to build an amazing podcast and all this sort of stuff, you have to have that aspect, because you will become relatable and you will build a following. And this is why I think the turn of social media from always having a tanned, photo looking fucking sexy and 10 out of 10 all the time is kind of waning a little bit, because sure, it's I'm not having a dig at models and all that sort of stuff, because they're working on their business and they're working on their personal brand and stuff, but relatability is an innately evolutionary ingrained phenomena for human beings. We need to relate, we're social, we want to get along with one another. And if you want to put yourself down as a thought leader or anything, if you just want like another mate, make someone laugh a bit more, just be relatable, have that side to you.
Mate, remind me not to send you through a picture for the episode with my top off posing.
With a 14 pack.
But I think, again, kind of being relatable and being vulnerable it's not just important in a podcast and not important in a business, but it's important in life in general as well. And I think a lot of the conversations that I've had with people, that actually if you're open and you're honest about kind of who you are and some of your flaws as well, it almost gives people permission and gives people the opportunity to say, actually, this dude doesn't have it all together.
Yeah.
He's not kind of the person that I think about. He's actually going through some shit that I've been going through, or something similar that I've been going through as well. But I've been hiding because I thought it was just me. I didn't think it was anyone else that was out there. And someone, you never know who you're going to affect with that conversation and opening up initially, to allow someone the opportunity to kind of come back and say, actually, I've been struggling with this too, and start to engage in a conversation and kind of work through that together.
Look, I totally agree, Chris, and I think this is a perfect segue to lead to our final two questions of the show, mate. And the first one is, in your personal life, if you don't mind being that authentic self that you are, my friend, what was the lowest point? What was your lowest point?
Yeah. I saw this question, Tommy, and you've caused me to do a little bit of digging in regards to that, actually. And we kind of discussed at the start of the podcast how I was just kind of floating along, and was thinking that this is kind of reasonably shit in terms of if this is what life is going to be like. Yes. There were not to say that there weren't exciting things in there at the time, but there were a lot of uncomfortable feelings with that, and I was someone that probably tended to try and either shut them out or run away from uncomfortable feelings. And
sure.
Kind of one of the coping mechanisms that kind of became a really bad habit, actually, was alcohol.
Okay. And
just kind of having a few drinks to block block out those uncomfortable feelings, and sometimes, reasonably often going overboard with that, actually, to sort of block that out, and kind of that again sort of coupled with kind of not having any engagement or kind of drive in life, it sort of started to turn into a bit of a negative spiral and kind of pull me down. And I mean, it was alcohol or drugs of any kind they're an interesting thing as well, because it also gives you something else to blame for your situation.
Yes.
But that it kind of there was a realization that I was like, okay, I don't want to do this anymore, in terms of I want to be more engaged in life, and I don't want to go out and just get shit faced.
Yeah.
Just to try and kind of hide from it, but it kept happening, and it was something that it was a kind of a massive sort of habit that I'd got into, and it took a little while to break, actually, but like it was tough.
Wow.
I woke up some mornings and I just like, fuck, this happened again, and it's just like, you kind of like, am I just a horrible person that can't manage this at all?
Yeah.
Turns out I'm not.
Turns out you are, mate. You are.
Yeah. Damn it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a pretty low point for me, in terms of kind of just being in that space and trying to run away.
No, mate, I appreciate you sharing. That's interesting. And finally, Chriso, if this does apply to you, what does spirituality mean to you? What's something that you believe in? I guess in that realm.
Yeah. Again, this one made me think. I was brought up as a Catholic. I went to Catholic primary schools, and so went to church, and I've kind of probably, like, if you defined me at the moment, I guess you'd probably kind of put the term agnostic.
Okay.
On me. I mean, I think that the short answer to that is I don't know.
Sure.
I think there's a lot of stuff out there that we don't know, that we don't understand.
Yeah.
Whether there's a God, or whether there's many gods, or whether there's multiple dimensions, or whether there's life in space.
Lollipop land.
Yeah. I don't know, actually, but I'm open to there being. I think, and I'm excited, actually, if I were to find out that there was something like that. I think kind of from kind of trying to live my life along kind of a spiritual path. Probably the things that I resonate with mostly. I mean, there's elements of Christianity that I resonate with, but probably more kind of from almost a sort of a Buddhist perspective.
Yeah.
Thrown in with wrapped up with a little bit of Stoic philosophy, and kind of and tying that stuff in together. So I think I probably try and live, or wanting to try and live more sort of from a values-based approach, and kind of be open to the possibilities that life may throw at me, whether that is something kind of emotional or spiritual, or just kind of working around this question in order to not give you a straight answer.
Definitely. I love it, mate. And Chriso, mate, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. Where can people find you? Talk to us about the podcast. Where can we find you there? And
Right. No, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Love it, mate.
You guys can connect with me on social media. I think Facebook and Instagram. It's uncomfortable as okay. I'm on Twitter as Chris Desmond NZ. I tweet maybe once a week when a podcast episode comes out.
Yes.
But best thing that you could do is get out your phone. Right. Well, you probably got your phone out listening to this podcast.
Yes.
Go into your podcast app, search for the Uncomfortable is Okay podcast, and hit subscribe to that. That'll be the best thing you could do.
Beautiful. It's a fantastic podcast. I love it. I'm a subscriber myself, and I think it's fantastic. So, all the MindMate followers and listeners, you should absolutely do yourself a favour. Chriso, legend. Thanks for coming on the show, man.
Oh, pleasure, Tommy. Always great to chat, mate.
Beautiful, mate. And we'll talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thanks, bro.
Bye. Beautiful, mate.
Cool, man. That was good fun.
Yeah, I try to keep them a little bit shorter than we do with Adventure Fit. We Adventure Fit sometimes go for, every now and then a show, we'll go for over an hour or something. But most of the time I try to keep this to 35-ish minutes, something like that. So I like the idea of just, how at the end we do our 6 from 6. Our show, this one here, I want those last 2 questions to stand as a bit more conversation. So to give the actual listener a bit more time to explore those, because they're very deep questions, but there's something, both, I'm very obsessed with both of them. I love them. So.
Yeah, I like them, and they really make you think. And I saw your Instagram post about deep conversations. And yeah, they do kind of inspire deep conversation, and the spirituality one it's an interesting one, eh?
Alrighty, guys, thank you so much for listening to that show. I genuinely hope you get something out of it just by all these beautiful, amazing people just having their real talks and authentic discussions. Like I said in the intro, guys, I really genuinely do value your feedback. That's what keeps this thing growing, because I want to try to meander it based on what you want to hear. So hit us up through iTunes, on Facebook, on Instagram, the MindMate, any way you possibly can. I genuinely will appreciate it. So I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.